About 20 years ago, I remember my parents and I went to Lincoln Park, Michigan, downriver, to the office of my good friend Ed Zelnak, who's still practicing law in Lincoln Park. And we met to make the arrangements for the transfer of the property and stuff, preparing for the day the Lord would take my parents to heaven and avoid probate. I highly recommend that, by the way, avoiding probate. Trust me when I tell you, it makes things a lot smoother. Anyway, so we're there, and of course we're getting all the deed ready for the transfer. And that was the time I thought was finally I'll ask my parents. For all these years, my parents never talked about investments or never really talked about their money situation with either me or my sisters. And so I thought this was a good time for them to let us know about the Gambala fortune that had been piling up on Wall Street. So I said, so, now's the time to tell us about the buried treasure that you folks have been piling up. And my mother and my dad looked at each other, and then they looked at me, and Mom said, well, in the cellar room in the basement, there's a large jar of pennies. And sure enough, the Lord took both of my parents home within 3 months of each other. And we were down there in the basement cleaning out. There was a large jar of pennies, half of them Canadian. Anyway, some were so old they had King George's picture on it. I'm telling, Mercury dimes. I mean, there's some old coins. But that was the fortune. Buried treasure does happen. But when Jesus gives parables, it's often to remember that parables are interconnected. Jesus doesn't give an isolated parable. He gives a beautiful message in the parable, but they are connected to other parables. And the treasure buried in the field is a parable that's actually connected to the parable about the king and the 3 servants. And he gives one servant 5 pieces of silver. He gives the second one of 10 pieces, 5 pieces, 2 pieces, and 1 piece. And the one who had 5 goes out and invests it, works with it, and makes 10. The one who had 2 invests it, works with it, makes 4. But the one who had 1, he just goes and buries it in the ground. And when the king comes back, he's very happy that the one who had 5 made 10 and the one who had 2 made 4. Believe me, what he's happy about isn't the money. He's happy about the fact that he has servants who are willing to work and were industrious and put it to use. What makes him upset about the one who buried it is the one buried didn't do anything with it. So here we have a buried treasure. And this person finds it. And he goes and he sells all he has and he buys the field so that he owns the treasure. The question is, what are you going to do with the treasure? In both parables, that which is buried represents God's grace in us, the talents that God has given every one of us. And what makes the king upset is that that person didn't use it. God has given every single person in this building talent, every one of you. You may be aware of it, you may not be, but it's there. Every one of you has special gifts from God. And the challenge is not to keep those beautiful talents that you have buried within you. It's to bring them out and use them for the building of the kingdom of God.